Yeah.
We couldn't understand, why is it that some batches are like way over and some are way under? What's really happening here? And the fact that they were collecting data, I mean, I think it was basically every second,
Yeah.
allowed us to understand relationships between equipment and outcome that we simply couldn't see. That we literally need to evaluate maybe 20 or 30 pieces of information, and just as a human, we couldn't process.
Growing a business requires a holistic approach that extends beyond sales and marketing. This approach needs alignment among people, processes, and technologies. So if you're a business owner, operations, or finance leader looking to learn growth strategies from your peers and competitors, you're tuned into the right podcast. Welcome to the WBS Podcast, where scalable growth using business systems is our number one priority. Now, here is your host, Sam Gupta.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the WBS podcast. I'm Sam Gupta, your host and principal consultant at digital transformation consulting firm Elevate IQ. Time series data is all about continuous monitoring of your machines to detect trends with your batches. If you don't collect and analyze the data, you might feel that you don't have capacity to meet customer demand and might be forced to acquire additional capacity or facility if you don't want to miss the opportunities. But the additional capacity might be right there within your facility and existing machines. Just because you may not have enough data points to draw conclusions from, you may not be aware of it. Also, even if you start collecting it, you might have to incorporate more variables to keep learning until you get to the bottom of the anomalies and trends you might be getting through your data. In today's episode, our guest, Jim Gavigan, shares his insights on the importance of time series data and why it is important to understand your capacity. He also discusses the role of historians in enterprise architecture and how it interfaces with other systems. Finally, he discusses the similarities in the manufacturing processes of various industries and how to perform batch analysis to spot anomalies and detect trends. Let me introduce Jim to you. Jim Gavigan has spent 25 years in the manufacturing space and has worked in both engineering and sales for companies like Rockwell Automation, OSI Soft, and Logical Systems. In 2016, Jim founded Industrial Insight, and the company focuses on helping manufacturers get the most out of their time series data platform. Industrial Insights efforts have netted millions of dollars for our customers in unrealized potential. With that, let's get to the conversation. Hey Jim, welcome to the show.
Hey, glad to be here, Sam. Thanks for the invite.
And I am super excited to dig into your insight about the time series data. Obviously, that plays an extremely critical role for manufacturers. So we want to know how they can really utilize if they might not be taking advantage of that. Just to kick things off, do you want to start with your personal story and current focus, Jim?
Oh, I've been in manufacturing for about 25 years. Actually started as a vibration analyst, believe it or not. Got my level 1 certification back in 95 or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Actually have a double E degree from University of Memphis. Then I got into control systems, worked for a small company for about 6 years, ended up running their engineering and control systems group. Then I worked for Rockwell Automation for about 6 years. I transitioned into sales. That was an interesting transition, maybe a story or two out of that.
Yep.
And then I was a technical consultant with them for about a year before I was recruited away by a local system integrator in the Memphis, Tennessee area.
Yeah.
I worked for them as their sales and business development manager for about 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
Kind of a theme here, that 5-6 year mark, huh?
Yeah.
But I worked for them doing sales and business development work. However, a lot of times I had to put the technical hat on.
Yeah.
And that's actually where I learned about time series data and its importance. We actually were doing some work for a customer, some batch analysis for a customer that helped them land a whole new customer, double their demand for their product. They had to build a whole new plant. They asked us to help build it with no bids. So I said, this whole data thing, I even called it that in my mind. This data thing is really important because I just watch it make two companies millions of dollars. And then about 6 years in, I got recruited by OSI Soft to come sell the Pi system for them. And I started out managing territories in Tennessee and Arkansas. Moved to Florida about a year as a strategic account manager and had a lot of the larger companies and customers in the Southeast. Learned a lot. And then ended up with 3 bosses in 2 years. And the last one and I did not get along in any way, shape, or form. So I went back to the system integrator, started their practice around the Pi system. Realized I was helping them build their dream. It was my dream, but I was helping them more than it was really mine. And so almost 5 years ago, matter of fact, December 6th, this will probably air after December 6th. I will have celebrated 5 years in business as Industrial Insight. So that's a little bit about my story. And what we focus on is helping customers leverage their time series data to actually make money with it. Most companies are collecting data. They kind of look at it very reactively. They don't really proactively use it to drive their business. And we try to help companies do that.
Very cool. So, most of the segments that you mentioned seem to be 5 years, which is very cool. I think that's the timeline that you really want. And by the way, I mean, see,
I'm a closet millennial. What can I say?
Right. And by the way, we might not be able to get along with everybody. I mean, everybody has their own perspectives, right? So sometimes it's better off that, we are not trying to get along with everybody. Whoever we get along with, you can hang out with them. But for today's conversation, obviously, we want to talk about the time series data and how the manufacturers can really take advantage of that. So we'll dig it deeper into all of that. Before we do that, we have one of these 10 questions that we ask every single guest. And Jim, that is going to be your perspective on business growth.
Well, that changes over time. So working for, Rockwell Automation had a different perspective than when I worked for Logical Systems, than when I worked for, Advanced Industry Support early in my career, then OSI Soft, and now. Right now, for me, business growth, we have to be careful in how we manage that. We're a system-oriented business. We deliver services. And you know how every service business is. You can have a great experience if the right person does the work for you. And then you turn around and ask that company back to do something else for you. And it's a miserable experience because they give you a different person. So it's very, very critical that our growth matches the type of people we hire and the capabilities that we hire. And so for a small company like mine, we really have to be careful in how we manage that. We have to pick the right customers. We have to pick the right people to work for us. We have to pick the right kind of opportunities for us that we think we can be very successful at and not spread ourselves too thin. So it's a challenge, but it's very different than, when you're working for, say, Rockwell Automation and, you're shipping product, right? That's a different perspective. I've worked for service companies. I worked at Advanced Industry Support. Early in my career, we were a fairly small company, maybe 15 people. Growth was very much like what I just described. When I worked for Logical Systems, we had grown from about 80 people to over 200 during the time I was there. And it's a little different, that your scale matters. Also matters that you pick the right people and you pick the right opportunities, which is where I really learned that. OSI Soft, you're shipping software. Literally people can already made the software, people can download it at any time. So growth can be really explosive for something like that. So it's a very delicate balance for us. Growth is. So it's just very different, over my career.
Very interesting. So you definitely evolve, with growth, and every business is going to be different always when it comes to their perspective of growth. But you are absolutely right that you need to be careful overall in terms of the way you are thinking of growth. You can't simply be focused on revenue and not worry about the cost because, growth is going to be everything. It's not going to be just one angle of the business. So let's dig deeper into your stories about the time series data. And I am especially interested in knowing, you mentioned that you were involved in this batch analysis. So I don't know if you're going to have a story related to what was your journey of doing the batch analysis and
tons of stories.
Yeah,
Sam,
so let's start with one.
I'm a storyteller, sir.
Yeah, please. I'm going to have so much fun on this show then. Because I love stories.
So that one was pretty interesting. I can't mention the name of the client, obviously, but it was a company we have been supporting for a while. And how we got the opportunity was I got a call from the local plant and said, hey, we've been supporting this particular for a couple of years off and on. We've had 2 or 3 different system integrators in there and no one's sticking. You know, we have to kick them out because they're just not bringing the right people, just like I was talking about with the growth thing, right? This would be the right fit, this particular person, because he was helping out at the local Memphis plant. Well, he wasn't available for a while. He was finishing up a project. So they said, hey, grab this guy over here because he's available. He was completely the wrong fit. And I ended up having to do an awful lot of technical work, which I finally freed up, and he and I were good friends and we worked really well together. And so we kind of kept things going really well for a couple of years. We did several really good projects. We had, stabilized their operation. We're helping them grow. They were meeting different clients' needs, and it was really exciting. Well, one day I'm sitting in my office and Trey comes to me and says, hey, they need to sudden have this kind of batch accuracy. And it was way tighter than anything we had worked on. And I said, well, why? He said, well, I don't know. I said, don't you think we ought to find out? A salesperson kicks into me. They're not asking this for no reason, and so I'm kind of teaching the engineer what I've learned from the sales process. And I said, well, let's give Chad a call. He was 2 levels above the plant manager, kind of on their business development side. And I said, let's see what they're doing. And turned out they were trying to land a new customer that was going to double their business. They were going to add some drugs into the thing. It was livestock feed is what they were making. And so there's going to be a lot more requirements. And their nutritionists had some really strict requirements and formulations. And they said, if we have this much accuracy, we're going to meet their tolerance every time. Because if we have to ask our operators to hand add something, they always miss. And so this way we know we're intolerant. So we need to be able to do that. So when we get off the phone, I said, I looked at Trey and I said, well, that puts it in a whole different perspective, doesn't it? And he said, absolutely it does. I said, we have to understand our customer's business. Exactly. What are they trying to accomplish, right? And that was something I've very much learned from the sales process, because as an engineer, you're very task oriented. What's the task? How do I accomplish the task? And this is something I'm trying to teach, Ben and Tia who work for me. I'm always trying to understand our customer's business. What drives their growth? What makes them successful? Exactly. What's the terminology that they use, et cetera, right? So Trey said, they've turned on their PI system to us. We're managing it now. He said, I can build a report that gives us, ever how many batches we want. We had literally, I kid you not, Sam, I had stayed up night after night writing some code that would capture how far off the last batch was, and I was storing it in N files in the PLC, and the techies out there will know what that means. But basically registers in the PLC, we would have numbers like minus 800, which means we were 800 pounds under target on that one. Then we'd have 3,000, which means we were 3,000 over. I would have the last 50 batches for the A mixer and the B mixer. I had no idea when they run it, which product it was, which operator was running. I had no context, but I at least knew about the last 50 batches, how accurate we were. Literally, we would take a screenshot in the morning. And we would circle the ones that were over the tolerance that we wanted, and we would count them up and say, okay, well, 8 out of 100 yesterday of the last 100 were off what we wanted our target to be. So that was our data collection system up until this point. And so he said, hey, they've turned on their PI system to us. I can do all that in an Excel spreadsheet. I can knock it out in just a few hours, and we can look at trends and things like that. So long story short, he builds this report. We look at it. We see the batches and what time they ran. We go back and look at the feed rate. And light bulb goes on. It's like, okay, well, they're hitting feed rates we never saw. And we had this we had this little table in the PLC that said, okay, when we're trying to hit this certain target and you're going fast, we're going to start cutting equipment off to slow the feed rate down as we approach the target.
Yeah.
So that way it'll be more accurate. Well, they were hitting speeds we had never seen. So we had never tuned that part of the table. Those were just guesses.
Okay.
Based on things, before.
Yeah.
So maybe we shut this conveyor off at 6,000 pounds from, target, and we shut this valve off at 3,000. And we slow the conveyor back at 2,000, the one that's still running. So we were cutting things off and slowing things down so that we could hit target.
Yeah.
We're hitting feed speeds we had never seen. So I said, okay, well, no wonder we're off on those. It's only those that were way off. Everything else, if we slow it down into this range, we hit it every time. So we just did a little bit of tuning over the next 3 or 4 days. And literally we were able to accomplish what we have been working on off and on for well over a year. We were able to get it way tighter than we had ever done before in about 5 business days. So we called Chad and said, hey, we think we got it. And we gave him some of the data that we've been collecting and said, hey, we think we've nailed it.
Yeah.
They invited their customer in.
Yeah.
Customer sees it, says, yep, you can do what we need you to do.
Yeah.
Let's go. They signed the contract. And next thing we know, we're helping them build another plant. Not even bidding it out because they said to us literally, you understand our process, our business, how this needs to operate. We trust you. We're not even going to bid this out to anybody. And it was going to be several $1 million. And that was just a moment that, wow, data is really powerful if you use it right. And that was a very reactive use case.
Yeah.
We reacted to a market condition. We weren't proactively trying to drive anything.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was really the aha moment.
Yeah.
And then when I worked for OSI Soft, I kept hearing those stories. I would hear some success stories at our annual conferences and then talking to some different people and different customers who were fully leveraging the system.
Yeah.
Started to realize, man, there's a real opportunity here and people really don't realize it yet.
Yeah. So very interesting story. And I am going to actually peel back a little bit more so that, my listeners can follow along. And some of the listeners may not have as much background in the time series data or PLC programming. So they would like to have a little bit more information overall in terms of what we are trying to accomplish. So from the overarching story perspective, I could follow along. And I am actually going to narrate some of those points that from the product perspective, you were trying to produce more of the livestock. And that's how you came to know, because you actually spoke to the manager who actually told you that, you were trying to increase the capacity to be able to meet the customer demand. But let's say if you compare this with some of the other manufacturing situations where they might not be collecting as much data or they might not have as much knowledge overall of their environment. So how the time series data obviously is going to be super critical in this specific case to be able to understand what is actually happening in your environment. So if you were to provide a little bit more colors over to the story, if let's say they are not collecting this data, what are going to be the implications? And so do you want to provide some more colors there?
Sure. The reality is we would have had a very difficult time understanding what was actually causing the problem. We would have had to sit there, which is what we had done before, and watch as many batches as we could and try to humanly digest everything that's coming at us. So, oh, darn, we just went over. What did I just see? I needed a DVR. I needed to rewind time and see what was going on. And more times than not, you couldn't catch it. And so that was our struggle, was we couldn't understand, why is it that some batches are like way over and some are way under? What's really happening here? And the fact that they were collecting data, I think it was basically every second, allowed us to understand relationships between equipment and outcomes. That we simply couldn't see. That we literally need to evaluate maybe 20 or 30 pieces of information. And just as a human, we couldn't process all that just watching their operator screens. We were trying to process all of it. Maybe you had a hunch, or hey, maybe you had to go to the restroom when the one batch that ran bad, happened, and you're like, oh, great, I missed the one that I needed to see. Right. And so this really allowed us to be able to sit back and really analyze everything that was going on. We could isolate just the ones that had a bad outcome. said, okay, these batches are bad. We don't want this outcome. We're too far under or too far over our target, and they're not going to be able to sell that to this new customer.
Yeah.
So we were able to isolate those and say, okay, what was happening specifically to those batches that we didn't see, that we didn't understand?
Yeah.
And like I said, we were trying to slow down the rate of feed into this mixer to hit a target. We're talking, I think it was 57,000 pounds that would go into the mix, right?
Yeah.
And I think they wanted, it was something like 99% of the batches on their main ingredient to be within 1,000 pounds, and then 95% within 500 pounds. So basically 1%, what we were trying to hit. And I think before that, it was 99% within 5,000 pounds and 95% within 1,000.
Yeah.
So it was a huge step change in the ability of this system to be accurate. And there's just no way we could have done it.
Yeah.
First, I don't think we could have done it. One. Two is we certainly couldn't have done it in 5 days reliably, where we could say to the customer, here's the data. We know this works now. We've analyzed this enough and you're going to make it.
Okay, very interesting. So I don't know if you had experience with this specific business, and I don't know what are going to be your input variables versus the output variables, because in case of your data, you should be collecting something. So in this particular case, obviously you are looking at different batches and they are meeting specific tolerance. So I don't know if you are going with the existing quality measures that they might be tracking, and then you are drilling deeper into that. So let's say if you were working
with what we were looking at was how the equipment was behaving before, like what were the conveyor speeds that were feeding the stuff into the mixer?
Yeah.
What were the valves doing? When did we cut the valves off? At what point did we cut them off so that, it would slow things down?
Yeah.
What were the conveyor speeds that we slowed down to?
Yeah.
Was that enough? What was that final feed rate that we needed to hit the tolerance? That was really the key. Is we figured out, I think it was like if we were under like 5,000 pounds an hour or something, it was some number. I can't remember what it was. It's been too many years now. But if we could get the final feed rate right before we shut the conveyor off and close the final valve off, if we could get it in this window, we were going to hit the target every time. That was what we figured out. We couldn't figure it out before.
Okay.
We didn't have enough data to allow us to understand that was the key relationship.
Okay. So I don't know if you're going to have any other story. Maybe. So let's say if I am trying to do this for the first time, obviously you are going to have tons of questions in understanding our process. So for example, let's say if you are doing this for another livestock business, you probably understand their recipes, you understand their formulas, you sort of understand their, how their operating flow will be. But when you walk from one business to the next, obviously their manufacturing processes are going to be very different. The way their machines and control systems are going to interact with each other is going to be very different.
That's correct.
So let's say when you are starting your discovery process with a business, what are going to be some of the things that you are going to be looking for, either from the operator or from the business? So I know that you are always want the business drivers, but once you know the business drivers, what are some of the parameters that you are looking for to be able to analyze this?
It's a great question. What I do now, and to your point, one of the things I struggle with at OSI Soft was a lot of our demonstration materials was based on oil wells or mine trucks or wind farms or some business that we had. I would walk into a paper mill and I would show them a demo because I'm wanting to show them a concept. They're focused on, oh, well, that's a wind farm. We're not a wind farm, we're a paper mill.
Exactly.
Or we're a chemical plant, or we're something else, we're an ice cream manufacturer, whatever it is, right? Immediately they kind of tune you out. And it was a struggle for me to think, I can connect the dots here. I can see what you need. How come you can't? And that's exactly what you're asking.
Exactly.
So over the years, there's some techniques I've learned. One is I try to ask the customer, I tell them this, I said, look, what we're looking for the first project to get you to believe in what we're doing and to believe that we can actually help you. Is we need something we can do in say 4 to 6 weeks. So we're talking, $25,000 to $45,000, $50,000 max. Right? Cost. But that could potentially save you $250,000 or more. Because what we often find is that it takes twice as much as what you thought,
Yeah.
and you get half the benefit.
Yeah.
So if we say it's going to be $30,000, we end up spending 60.
Yeah.
You think you're going to save 250, but you save 125. That's still a win. That's a 6-month payback.
Yeah.
Right. That's a hurdle rate any business will sign up for, even in this economy. Right.
Yeah.
So I try to get them thinking along those lines. I'm like, what are those things that you're struggling with? And I know I've been around manufacturing, and I've been around paper mills, chemical plants, ice cream manufacturers, all different kinds of food and beverage plants, livestock. What is very interesting, and I tell you, never believe me until we actually do the first project.
Yeah.
You guys all have the same problem. You just use different terminology.
Yeah.
It's all the same thing.
Yeah.
You think you're different and special, but you're not.
Yeah.
And it's hard sometimes for me to convince them of that.
Yeah.
And so I try to get them to start talking about what are those things that are killing them.
Yeah.
And if I hear something that I think, that I think we could do something there, tell me more.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's some that they tell me about, and I'm like, okay, that's going to be really complex. We're not going there.
Yeah.
Right. And so I try to find those things that as they're describing it, sounds similar to something else we've done.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
In the past.
Yeah.
And then I can start talking very specifically, or maybe I can bring up a specific example that says, okay, now you're going to have to imagine a little bit here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I try to get them, it's like the car salesman tactic, where they're trying to get you to imagine yourself in that vehicle.
Yeah.
Right. So I try to get them to think about, well, what if I had these capabilities?
Yeah.
What if I could see all of this in real time? What if I could have history and slice and dice it like this?
Yeah.
What could I do with that?
Yeah.
And I try to get them thinking that way. And sometimes even today, it's difficult sometimes for people to understand how to get there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll give you, the one that we talked about last week off camera is we had a company that it's a midstream oil and gas company.
Yeah.
And it's funny, we had never done any business in oil and gas.
Yeah.
And what's so funny is one of the people that we initially started working with said, well, look, if you're doing chemical plants and paper mill, we got tanks and pumps and flow meters.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just not that hard.
Yeah.
There's just not that much to it.
Yeah.
And now their terminology is different. Their business drivers are different. I had to understand certain things that, I wasn't familiar with, but it really wasn't that hard. Right.
Yeah.
Well, one of their major drivers was they have these really large pumps, like 5,000-6,000 horsepower, that have to run around the desired manufacturing specification for flow.
Yeah.
Right. And they call it best efficiency point. And they had to run between 70 and 120%.
Okay.
And if it didn't run in that range, it was big money per day.
Okay.
And I was looking at some of their data, and I'm sitting here, and unfortunately someone else had done some financial analysis. I mean, the opportunities were in the millions, the many millions.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here thinking, I'm looking at this and I'm like, you can't even see this in real time. Based on some work we've done for another customer, we've done something really similar.
Yeah.
We could do that for you, just kind of adapt it for you. And we could tell you in real time if you're in that range, and we could build some events that would tell us how long are you out of that range.
Yeah.
And can you, maybe put some commentary on it, put a reason code why you're not in the range. Hey, maybe we don't have the customer orders. Maybe, we have an equipment problem. Maybe, I didn't really realize that. The operator's literally is like, I didn't really realize we weren't, in the range we should have been.
Yeah.
And if you can start documenting that, then you can start attacking those things that you can control. Well, you can't control if you have an equipment breakdown downstream and you can't pump things that way, right? Well, that's a different problem.
Yeah.
Okay. That's not a problem that your operators didn't know that this is where they were supposed to be, and they were blindly just running how it was run, which happens a lot in every plant.
Yeah.
Tend to say, well, they have this tribal knowledge that they think is correct, where they think, okay, well, this is how I've been told to run, so therefore this is how I have to run. It may be the wrong way to run. And they had that there. We discovered that. One of their people had discovered that. They said, if you run these three pumps in combination, that'll never work. Well, that was one of their best performing combinations.
Interesting.
And so the first analysis I did was in March, and for the year, they had spent 23 days
Yeah.
equivalent, that many hours
Yeah.
off that BEP.
Yeah.
That was millions of dollars to them.
Okay.
And they figured it out like that. We had, again, I did this in like 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Had never really spent a lot of time in oil and gas or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I understood the business driver. They described what their current situation was. And I'm sitting here thinking, I can do that in 3, 4, 5 weeks. That is really not a hard thing to do. And it's very much like this thing we did when we were monitoring 3-stage compressors for a liquid gas plant 3 hours up the road from us.
Yeah.
It's almost identical, except the graph's going to look different.
Yeah.
The concepts are identical.
Yeah.
The graph's going to look different.
Yeah.
And so literally we were able to leverage that work we had done before, adapt it to their specific situation, and in 5 or 6 weeks churned out something that's going to help them save millions of dollars. So what I always try to do is, since I've been exposed to so many different things, I try to find those things that are going to save them a bunch of money.
Yeah.
That if I can understand enough, I'm thinking we can probably do that within a month or 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or we can make a huge dent where the aha moment happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm looking for. And it's a challenge. That was one of my frustrations and why I got into technical side of things when I left OSIsoft. I had several ways I could have gone.
Yeah.
I was software companies potentially. There was other opportunities I was looking at. And I was literally like, I want to go help these customers that I've been working with.
Yeah.
On the things that I can see in my mind's eye. That was literally what was driving me.
Yeah.
And when things didn't really go the way I wanted them to at LSI, that second go around, I said, I really need to go do this on my own, because I have some ideas and some things I need some freedom to go do. But again, it's that same driver for me. Is I felt like I could see the solution for the customer long before they could.
Yeah.
And my experience now allows me to and the amount of examples that we have allow me to get something pretty close to them, to get them to have that aha moment before they actually pay us.
Okay, very interesting
answer, but
very interesting. So since you are mentioning that, even though they might be using different industry terms in different situations, but for the most part, their processes are going to be fairly similar. And when I look at the industrial control space or the PLC space, I have a lot of friends, the way they are sort of training their robot arms, the way they have to do everything custom. I sort of understand why they have to do this. But when you are saying that, you can probably draw the similarities and the model. So why do you have to develop so much custom code in these cases? Can you not utilize some sort of, off-the-shelf software that can be customized? Because see, if you ask,
that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. We rarely write custom code. We are literally configuring the problem that OSIsoft has had for years. Now Aviva is they had built all this capability for their customers. The problem is the customers have less and less technical capability and less time to be able to explore how that new functionality can help them. So the problem is they had adoption rate problems. People were not adopting the new technology, even though it was incredibly powerful. So really all we've been doing, for the most part, probably 95% of what we have done over the last 5 years is literally we're taking an off-the-shelf software like Pi. We are configuring it in a way that instead of it just being reactive and the customer has to go draw the information out, we present it to them in their face. Here's the problem. Here's what you need to do, and make it obvious to them.
Okay.
And then we've also learned to use tools like Tableau or Power BI to look at much more long-term, but we put a lot more context around the data where they can start to use that to drive real-time solutions. They can say, oh, okay, well, we've analyzed this long-term data. Man, if we knew this in real time, we could prevent this $1 million worth of loss over the last 3 years. Can you help us get something in real time in front of the right people to notify us that this is about to happen? Well, sure. And so we literally take an off-the-shelf software or set of software tools, configure them in such a way that people can take years worth of data and actually turn into information that then they can take action on, that then it can drive profitable results for them. That's really the change.
Okay, very interesting. So when I talk to folks and you know how involved the Industry 4.0 community is, if I go to my Discord server or if I go to Clubhouse, there are 7,000 people, all talking
Yep.
how much they can do from the digital transformation perspective. I have actually lived my life doing just this. Okay, I can see some challenges in the automation space because they are going to be fairly unique. So I don't know. So you mentioned that you can literally buy off-the-shelf software and you don't have to do as much custom coding. But I know a lot of people are actually doing a lot of custom coding. I don't know if that is required, or are there other drivers that might be driving why they are doing the custom coding? Are there going to be any sort of restrictions? In your case, let's say if you are utilizing this off-the-shelf software, do you have to utilize specific control systems that are the only ones that can be utilized?
No, and as a matter of fact, we don't just use Pi. I mean, Pi has been predominant for us for the last 5 years, but we've also recommended Canary systems, Canary Labs to a customer because it fit what they were trying to do. Another off-the-shelf system, Capstone Technology, and their Parkview and Data Park products, because they're into some industries. But those are off-the-shelf products that have a lot of functionality. In almost every case, if you want to write custom applications against that data, or you want to pipe that data to a data lake, to do something else with it, maybe to write some kind of a custom code that's beyond the scope of what those tools do. There's no reason you can't do that. And every company kind of takes a little different approach. Some make you pay for it, some don't, and everybody's got a little different philosophy. But the reality is there are APIs that allow you to go get the data that you need if you want it. If you feel like a custom solution is the right one for you. And look, sometimes we've had to write some custom stuff. Ben wrote a thing for the liquid natural gas plant. They literally just wanted runtime hours for rotating equipment on a daily basis. And they wanted to push it to their Maximo system. So we thought we were going to have to write this bi-directional driver that was going to, push the data over, kick off a work order, and then let Pi know that it's been generated. And as we got to really all we need is a text file, like a CSV file. We know how to ingest that into Maximo. We built something that goes and can do that on a daily basis. If you could just write a little piece of code that runs once a day, that gives us the updates for the runtime hours, we'll take care of the rest. We'll build all the rest in Maximo if you can just do that. And so Ben actually wrote that little bit of code, it's a little bit of Python code, that basically says, hey, I'm going to go look in a very specific place in the hierarchy of how the data is organized. And I'm going to grab whatever's under there. So if they've added equipment to it, we taught them how to add equipment. We built it off of a template and said, hey, just instantiate this template, fill out these particular fields, and the next time it runs, it'll go get that information, right? And so what it does is it goes and grabs that and then pushes it over to Maximo into the right places. So we made something, that was a custom piece of code, but it was based off of a standard configuration that we did that the customer now has control over. They don't have to call us every time like, hey, we need to add another motor or another pump. And we did it with filters, we did it with tank levels, and we did it with rotating equipment. They don't have to call us. We literally built a way that said, hey, if you want to add more, just put it here. Here's the procedure. Put it here, instantiate this template, and it'll go find the data and it'll push it over there. And as long as you're doing your Maximo stuff correctly, it'll work. And it has. They've been using it for a couple of years, and it's saved them a ton of time. Because what was happening before was their maintenance planners would have to go into the Pi system, pull that data into Excel and say, okay, well, all right, when's the last time we ran it? They'd have to pull up Maximo. Okay, when's the last time we did the PM? Okay, was it this many hours? Okay, now we're here. We're not quite there yet. So now I'm going to have to run that next week because we won't be there. Well, now the work order gets generated and somebody just has to go validate. Yep, that looks correct. Yep, let's go ahead and do that, and pushes it out to somebody to actually go do. Saves them a ton of time. And so many are still doing it the first way, where they have a maintenance planner that's having to take disparate data from two systems and figure out how to marry them up. Or we have one customer, kid you not, This is 2021. Yeah, it's almost 2022. I kid you not.
Yep.
This is still going on in manufacturing. They have a spreadsheet. They pull data out of the Pi system.
Okay.
It gets PDF'd, emailed out to people, printed out and put in people's boxes.
Yeah.
And literally they take the printed out PDF and punch it into SAP.
Very interesting.
2022, and they literally take a printed out sheet and punch it into SAP, and I guarantee you they're not alone.
Yep. I can believe that, and I agree with you.
And so the reality we see is so many people, so many companies are still so reactionary on the manufacturing floor. They have the tools available. They don't know how to use them, and they don't have time to leverage them because they're so lean.
Yeah,
that is the biggest challenge we have too. Is for instance, I told this story. I've got a video coming up on my YouTube channel. We talk about this. But Dave Griffith and I were talking about this problem.
Yeah,
is I trained a customer in 2018.
Yeah,
I went up to their site in North Carolina.
Yeah,
I trained a bunch of young engineers on how to do specific things with the Pi system.
Yeah,
how to configure tags, how to look at the data. Yeah. And how to organize it into a hierarchy and so that they get some context around it. I taught them how to do all that.
Yeah.
3 years later, Ben and I did basically the same training, except Ben did some more remediation on how to actually get the data out of the control system into Pi. Yeah. And how to actually go do that. And then I did a little bit of the stuff I taught 3 years ago, but they're not ready for that. Okay. So literally in 3 years, step back, not a single engineer that I trained in 2018 is still at that site in North Carolina. Not one. Yeah. I did training at one of our major customers 3 years ago as well. Not a single person is in the same role that they were in 3 years ago. Yeah. Not a single one of them. That's amazing. And I think 3 of them left the company. 1 had gone to work for corporate. Yeah. And everybody else was at the plant, but in a different job. Yeah. And only maybe 2 or 3 of them are still even configuring any of the Pi stuff that I trained them on. Out of the 10. Yeah. And that's the challenge we have. And that's why I think our business makes a lot of sense is we come in because we have a lot of industry knowledge, because we know the tools. Yeah. And we know multiple tools. We don't just know one. Yeah. It's very easy for us to understand once we kind of get the customer lingo that, oh, you need to track downtime. Oh, you've got this maintenance problem. Oh, you have this throughput problem. Yeah. Oh, you have this quality problem. Yeah. Well, we've worked on things in that entire space for multiple industries. Yeah. The solutions are remarkably similar. Is it a batch process, a continuous process, or is it discrete? Yeah. We're either counting widgets, we're counting batches, or we're analyzing something. Yeah. Yeah. So it's there's so much similarity. But the problem we have in industry, again, I'm going to go back to this and beat on this, is so many companies are running so lean, so thin. Yeah. And they just don't have the talent or the time to do what they used to be able to do.
That's very interesting. So maybe a lot of people might not be familiar with, where your Pi, Canary Labs, the systems that you mentioned, where they fit in the overall architecture. So since you mentioned that, some people were taking data from Pi and, pushing to SAP, obviously SAP has its own ME or MII system. So I don't know if Pi is going to be comparable to that. And then you also mentioned that this data was going to Maximo. Maximo is probably going to be your maintenance system, right? So paint the picture in terms of the overall architecture. What is the role of the system and where they fit in the architecture?
So I guess I look at it in probably 3 layers. Okay. I'm kind of maybe a traditionalist a little bit in that regard. Yeah. So you have the control system domain, which is all your PLCs, your SCADA systems, your HMIs, your DCSs, all the stuff that's controlling the plant, right? That's real time. Yeah. Then you kind of have this MES layer. Yeah. Okay. Which is your data historians, your MES systems, all of those kind of in between systems. And then you have your ERP, which is maintenance, financial, supply chain, all that kind of stuff, which sits on top of all of that. The thing that I find, you mentioned SAP MII, it has some reporting functionality, but they really have no idea how to use plant floor time series data because it just looks different. Yeah. They want things in rows and columns and everything nice and neat. Yeah. Time series data is not nice and neat. Yeah. Because even though I may be asking for the data every second, I may not get data every second, or I may not store data every second. Yeah. Because I'm getting exactly the same signal, or it's basically the same signal. Yeah. And so I might get a data point, at 3:51:01. Yeah. Then I don't get another one till 351.43.
Yeah.
Right. Systems like Maximo and SAP don't know how to deal with that.
Okay.
Right. If it's not in rows and columns, I don't know what to do with it. So where Pi and Canary and Capstone and all these other, the systems we work on, is kind of, to me, I think of it as a little bit of a hub, in that the MES system needs data, because we have to understand, what's running, what are the flow rates, or what are the batch rates, what are the temperatures, what are the quality parameters? Is this a, first pass quality, all those kind of things. Is this now work in process? Is it complete? Now we're waiting on the next step, all those kind of things. It needs that real-time data to understand what's been going on. Right? A lot of times SAP needs the data, because just like what we were talking about for the maintenance side, how many hours did this thing run? Because I need to maintain it. Or maybe I'm looking at specific conditions that, it's looking for, has it run over current for a really long time? Maybe that's a problem. It also needs utilizations. We're working on right now that we're trying to do real-time utilizations in dollar. Because they're trying to reconcile that every month in SAP. But the problem is, you get to the end of the month and you're like, oh crap, I'm a million over what I should have used in raw materials. Well, how did I get there? Well, if I had known, I could have done something different. So what we're trying to do is deliver something that's more real time. It's more like at that MES level, that kind of right now or almost right now level. Where I can say, well, maybe I can change my outcome where I don't have such a financial hit at the end of the month. Right. So I think the systems we work on kind of work in that MES layer. I look at it as kind of the infrastructure layer. It's kind of that repository from the control system to here, and that's where the all of the data reside. You might need for these other systems. Now we may have to contextualize a little bit. Maybe SAP just needs, well, what was the total of this particular raw material we used today? What was the runtime hours of this particular asset today? Right. Or maybe it production numbers by the hour. Right. We have to generally contextualize it to be able to be used in those other systems. Right. Because they're not able to handle that real time data, so typically that's kind of where I see these systems operate. And I think they're going to continue to operate there. Even as the IIoT infrastructure and methodology change over the years. I think things will change, but I do think there is a role for a data historian in an IIoT infrastructure. Matter of fact, the article that I have written that gets more views than any other article I've ever written is a data historian on IIoT platform.
Very interesting.
Short answer is it's not. It's part of it, but it's not a platform. So, but you can go read the article. It gets hit probably every day, either on my site or Martin Davis's site. So he asked me to write it, and it resonates with a lot of people.
Yeah, I definitely will. In fact, we can probably include as part of this episode. But one of the questions that I'm going to have for you is going to be, where does SPC sit in the architecture? So you mentioned histogram and MES, that is going to be underneath your maintenance system and the SAP and the corporate. What about SPC? Where does that sit in the architecture?
Yeah, SPC is in that same layer that the historian's in. It's not at the ERP layer. It's not down at the control system layer. It's kind of in that middle layer, right? Pi can do some SPC capability. It has all of the Western Electric, SPC codes. You're on one side of the center line, or you're 2 sigma out, you're 3 sigma out. Right, from your or from your target. So some of the systems can do some SPC. But then there are other systems that are specifically designed to take that data in and add a little more context to it. Because a lot of times there's corrective actions that you need to do and things like that. The data historian's typically not at capturing that, at those kind of like process type, like workflow process type, not like manufacturing process, the workflow process, like, okay, when this happens, you do step 1, step 2, step 3. Data historian's terrible at that. Right. Software is generally geared to handle those things. Okay, when you see it, go to here, then here are the things you need to do, 1, 2, 3. Generally, what we see is the laboratory information systems and the data historian will feed an SPC if there's not some native capability that the customer's using in the LIMS system or in the historian. We will see those two things feed SPC. That's typically what we.
Very interesting. And why are these capabilities not housed inside MES system? So MES is supposed to be the system, one brand system.
They are. They are a lot. Not always. They're in that layer. They're in that MES layer, as I like to call it. Right. You have the plant floor.
Yeah.
You have MES. You have ERP. Right. MES is data historian, SPC, work in process, scheduling. All those things that are actually having to do with the execution of making your product. Right. That's semi real time. That's more daily stuff. If you look at the SAP and Maxima and things like that, that's much more a macro view of things, like end of month closings and things like that. It's a much more broad view.
Yeah.
MES is a little more, quite a bit more granular, and then real time is much, much more granular. It's what's happening right now.
So let's say if somebody buys a really big MES system, are they going to get the histogram and SPC capabilities as part of that? Or do they have to utilize a separate system for that?
It's out of my area of expertise. We typically there, like a couple of customers have asked us to do some SPC stuff inside of Pi.
Yeah.
Because they didn't want to go buy a specific system, or their company had a specific system that particular plant hated and they didn't want to see it used.
Yeah.
And they said, can you please do this in Pi? And we demonstrated the capability, and the plant manager said, that's more than good enough for what we're trying to do. And it's way better than what we're doing now, which is nothing. And it's a lot better than that other system that, corporate's trying to push on us. To me, that's the only time we've ever really gotten involved in any kind of statistical process control or statistical quality control.
Yeah.
There are other systems that can do that.
Yeah.
And typically specialize in that.
Yeah.
We can definitely do it from the poor man's perspective. We can get you started. And matter of fact, I've been working on a quote right now for doing downtime tracking.
Yeah.
For a customer. We're doing it all with Pi.
Yeah.
And the reality is that there may come a day when they outgrow that capability. They may say, hey, we need some more functionality. We need some more things. We're like, well, we're kind of using all we can use here.
Yeah.
We have a place we can go. We have a partner that we're talking to who builds a downtime system that marries up to Pi, and we can say, hey, once you've kind of graduated out of this and you need more capability, here's where we can go. So we kind of try to stay in our lane and be experts in the things that we're really good at.
Yeah.
We're really, really good at time series data.
Yeah.
And we kind of play around with some of those other things. We just have to touch them.
Okay.
So I don't know that I'm the right person to ask that question.
Okay, amazing. So that's it for today. Do you have any last minute closing thoughts or remarks for our listeners?
No, I think, well, yes, I do. I'm sitting here saying no, but then I'm going to say something. I think the biggest thing that I always try to tell customers, and I say this on my YouTube, is in your time series data, you have a gold mine.
Yeah.
Or it could be a gold mine. Times we find it's not as good as what you think. We could talk for a whole hour on data quality.
Yeah.
I haven't even touched on that today. You can go see my YouTube channel. I talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
But if you have good data quality, you have a gold mine on how to run your business better. You know what good looks like. You know what bad looks like. The problem is most companies don't have to dig it out and present it to the right people.
Yeah.
To show them what good and bad looks like to get the right outcomes. And especially in this workforce changing, Dave Griffith posted just the other day about, we have all these retirements happening.
Yeah.
Or have happened, especially over the last year and a half, right?
Yeah.
A lot of the subject matter expertise is gone.
Yeah.
At a lot of manufacturing companies. Now you pile on top of that, these sharp young millennial engineers have decided, I don't want to work in this plant out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
I'm leaving for a better opportunity.
Yeah.
Now what are you going to do? Well, for me, I always go back to, you need to find someone like us who can take that real-time data or that time series data and say, okay, let's go figure out what good looks like.
Yeah.
You can't ignore the process knowledge.
Yeah.
But I can enhance the process knowledge. We can enhance the process knowledge by taking that time series data and saying, here's what good looks like, here's what bad looks like. And I think too many companies are still ignoring that opportunity, or they're not reaching out to us or a company like ours. Because I've said this before, like, hey, if we're not the right fit, we're not the right fit for everybody. Obviously, we have certain clientele we fit really, really well with.
Yeah.
But if it's not us, go talk to somebody who does this.
Yeah.
Because there's tons of opportunity in there. And especially, I think in the next couple of years, we're going to see inflation catch up to us. I think capital money is going to get, I think the supply chain issues aren't over with. I think in certain industries, we may have a glut coming up.
Yeah.
And their prices are going to drop.
Yeah.
I think it's going to get to be a really weird market here in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
And I think what we're going to see is capital is going to be cut. So therefore, a company's like, well, I need 10% more capacity.
Yeah.
I can't go buy new machinery. I can't build a new plant. Where am I going to get it? I'm going to get it with what I already own because it's not running as efficiently as it should.
Yeah.
That's where working with a company like ours or, somebody else like us is going to really benefit. And I think that's what people are going to have to keep in mind these next couple of years is you're going to have to make the most of what you have because your capital money, you're not going to be able to cover up your inefficiencies with capital and throwing more machinery and more plants at it.
My personal takeaway from this conversation is going to be time series data is going to have a real goal. So make sure you are really utilizing that and understanding how you can take advantage of that. On that note, Jim, I really want to thank you for your time. This has been a powerful episode. I cannot thank our guests enough for coming on the show, for sharing their knowledge and journey. I always pick up learnings from our guests and hopefully you learned something new today. If you want to learn more about Jim, head over to industrialinsightinc.com. It's industrialinsightinc.com. For blogs and other material as well as their YouTube channel, search Industrial Insights Inc. Links and more information will also be available in the show notes. If anything in this podcast resonated with you and your business, you might want to check other related episodes, including the interview with Martin Davis, who discusses the strategies to improve your manufacturing facility's capacity and increase the overall equipment effectiveness of your equipment. Also, the interview with Max Krug, who discusses what actions businesses need to take if they encounter product quality or business performance issues. Also, don't forget to subscribe and spread the word among folks with similar backgrounds. If you have any questions or comments about the show, please review and rate us on your favorite podcasting platform or DM me on any social channels. I'll try my best to respond personally and make sure you get help. Thank you, and I hope to catch you on the next episode of the WBS Podcast.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the WBS Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. For more information on growth strategies for SMBs using ERP and digital transformation, check out our community at WBS.rocks. We'll see you next time.